Okay, let me get to this. Okay, I'm multitasking here. Let's give honor to the source who created the Most High for making all this possible. I'm in the process of, this is going to be the first episode to the Father, the conversation from the Father you never had. This can be very insightful for a lot of daughters, mothers, and even after, like your young daughters who are probably teenagers, relate to these conversations, and women presently, no matter where you are in your life. It's bringing a different awareness. Again, I'm recording, but also looking at my shoot. Talk about the first episode introduction, but I just created the podcast, so this is the first episode. So this will be available on my YouTube. My first channel. So either way, I may create another podcast on the other channel too. This is gonna be cool because this is dope. Because I just realized you can do this. So I'm gonna read you actually like the description. Basically, it says that topics around unresolved trauma. First, let's give honor to the source of the creator, the Most High, the ancestors, known and unknown. The reason why this is so important that I always say that is because being not just a man, a vessel, human being, whatever you want to call it, these things that I connect and correlate has a lot to do with those that came before me and will come after. So giving gratitude and honor has a lot to do with a part of that being what waters me and also what did not water me, or those that came before me. Like, as if like when you see why people behavior patterns were the way they were, it makes a lot of sense to a lot of these conversations that I talk about, to bring people back home to themselves, to reinvent, to recreate what it is to be emotionally safe again within the home, within yourself, to be able to bridge that between worlds and people. So that which, when I say the ancestors known and unknown for the highest good of all, it's giving gratitude to those that, again, bringing awareness to being present in us being a part of that which they came before and come after when we leave the vessel, and more so like the message that will echo beyond the vessel. So just that connection ancestrally to speak about that, because when you think about a tree, a family tree, when you think about what I talk about, the fruit, lately here I've been talking about like how we are progressing and transitioning into the greatest wealth transfer has a lot to do with not just physical, tangible things, but the intangible, the spiritual, the things that we behind the scenes. I don't know what you're going through. You don't know what I'm going through, but everyone's going through something and trying to navigate the best way they know how, with or without the knowledge, with or without the insight. I haven't always been here. So that being said, I'm gonna just unplug this. That being said, I mentioned this in here, how the awareness around what we're doing, what we're called to do, I'm honored to even relate and offer this message like a fruit, because it's like the forbidden fruit almost, that it's almost like that learning more about who we are, knowing thyself, is that forbidden knowledge that we are fearful of. So knowing about yourself is taking a bite of not just what other people are always offering, because that's a part of, in accepting in exchange for what they always are offering, you don't know what comes with that, those vices, those things spiritually. Is it good for your soul and your spirit? So this is why the balance of what's being restored and recalibrated has a lot to do with in diving deeper and knowing about myself and connecting things spiritually, mentally, emotionally, generationally, then I'm able to notice what has been, if you want to quote, say, rotten or needs to be cleansed to be able to share and offer something that, again, will be forbidden to other people because of someone else's belief system, someone else's way of being or how they should be and so forth. So that means that I'm not looking for people to accept, to validate, to even be open to things unless they're ready. This isn't about forcing, because we're coming out and already are out of that manipulation, deception, trying to deceive just to one up people. This is a healing space. This is a space of things that will be triggered, things that will be acknowledged, things that we will uncover. And I'm going to read my description because it's supposed to be that way, to uncover and unravel the things that we did not see, we did not know. And then that knowledge is one thing, but applying is another. So when I say about forbidden fruit, or almost like recognizing what you are offering, like what are you giving yourself? Because to offer something, what have you given yourself? So we have not been a people or a person that has known what it is to be stable within our own truth, being authentic, walking in gratitude for what has happened. Then we're offering to whomever without realizing that there's consequences. There's a universal law behind what you give and what you receive. So in you being unaware, not realizing how coming from foundations of, or restoring the foundations, I should say, of how we need to pour into ourselves, knowledge of self, and then moving forward with that. Because how are we going to share and that is a part of being student and teacher. I had to go through my own lessons as a student of life to be able to share these teachings, again, through that knowledge, because knowledge is knowing is half the battle. Wisdom is a part of how people come and eat from the fruit of your tree. But that wisdom also is a part of the knowledge that you have within, knowing thyself, knowing self, and then the intentions behind what you're offering. So that wisdom also applied is knowing what you're giving and offering to other people, and knowing that what you give, like, is the reciprocity. Am I giving to myself? So that which I offer, I shouldn't be surprised in what I get back in return. So if I'm watering myself, I shouldn't be surprised that others watered me. You see what I'm saying? So that is the knowledge and wisdom aspect of knowing and then applying. Wisdom is applying and learning through those experiences. So that's a part of, again, I've had to learn in that which I knew. At some moments I knew nothing at all. So then through the process of being a student of life, through my own innocence and ignorance, I had to learn. So moving forward with the description, topics of unresolved. So this is, again, for those that are new to this is conversations from the Father you never had. So again, this is for all, because men can learn about this, but the audience will be, of course, towards mothers or women who typically or come from foundations where it was unstable. It could be chaotic, just dysfunctional, basically bridging that absence of a father or the conversations you never had, but there's different topics. So again, this can be viewed and shared with everyone. So again, here we go. Topics of unresolved pain, traumatic experiences, memories brushed up under the rug, now surfacing and or resurfacing, yet to be addressed. So that which was ignored. Triggering conversations from the creator, meaning myself, like the creator of this channel, about the internal dialogue hoarding within our daughters who grow into womanhood, or women who also experience motherhood who will come into motherhood. These topics episodes will possibly bring clarity, insight, unprocessed emotions leading to anger. And the reason I say that because there's so much I feel a lot of us carry or noticing from the experience of exchanges with women I have been with, not all, but my mother, just looking at the root of my experiences, there's a lot of resentment and anger that has not been processed, that's unprocessed, and unconsciously is projected, or a lot of men, and this happens with women too, that, from the same dialogue of men having mother wounds, where they receive a lot of backlash or projections from someone else's experiences that had nothing to do with the individual. So a lot of that anger, a lot of these things, we'll have conversations for you to remind you that do not ignore that. We're here to not ignore the emotion. We're not here to keep it down. What was done was not okay. What was done to you, there has to be emotion behind it, because that's a part of how we are, the human experience. Now, a lot of what has been kept in the dark is for a lot of the identity that a lot of us has built individually. And I'm going to highlight that when you realize, like, a lot of things as women, especially some of you dealing with abuse, neglect, abandonment, whatever it is, whether it's a father wound and so forth, that again brings more awareness to the fact of how you have developed your identity around these things in your careers and so forth, in these settings, to where it's kept you in a place of fear and scarcity and so forth. And so continuing along, again, it's just the fact of the anger that's been stored, away for so long, to where it's supposed to bring up things so you can acknowledge it, so you can get it out, so you can let it go, not release. Because I tell people, when you lease something out, that's something contracted. When you release it, you're basically asking, like, to go through a loop. We're not doing that here. We're letting go, and we're keeping it at a distance. So this topic and episodes will possibly bring clarity, insight, unprocessed emotions, leading to anger that has been stored within the body, memory bank, or subconscious mind for years, generations, that creating a ripple effect on those around you. This is something I am given to sharing to bridge the father-daughter, daughter-father, bridge to all women for all walks of life, no matter the creed, color, or nationality. This is to usher in a new profound awareness, to uncover what has been plaguing the connection between woman and, her inner child, the little girl who has lost sight of balance with the feminine and masculine aspects beyond religion, beliefs being forced upon by a father. I'm glad I read this over. By your father and or like patriarchal figure, because I'm gonna put that in there. This is a figure and society, really. Patriarch, figure in society. Focusing also on the father wound, some don't have knowledge of, and how the mother wound could also connect to the birthing of that process. So a lot of this, what you'll come to know that in awareness of it, which I recognize again, a lot of what the mother wound revealed to me connects to the father wound. And it brings you not only back home to, for me, the little boy within me, but it will bring you back home to the little girl in you. And then you will be able to connect that which happened to you from your father. You'll be able to connect that mother wound to his mother, and or mother wound with your mother, and or matriarchal figures. You'll be able to connect to see what also they have went through abandonment wounds, why they love the way they love, why they treat you the way they treat you. All of that, again, reflects an internal image, or almost like, not almost, but and a structure or belief system centered around how women are, what they should be. How, in that, you're talking about men developing a belief system and why they treat women the way they do, or how they view them. And most of the time, if they haven't healed or acknowledged things outside of belief systems or religions and so forth, because a lot of these things are exposing the control, the manipulation around how things have been so imbalanced, to where now it's being so exposed during this transformative moment, and seeing how much the patriarchal system has almost like placed himself on a hierarchy above women in imagery, sexually, monetarily, all across the board. And then even the key players that you don't see behind the scenes, again, women who are wounded or actually enabling this, and some who are conscious and some who are unconscious of it. So it shatters the illusion of what everyone has been living in, individually and collectively. Yeah. This journey isn't an overnight process. I'm telling you, it ain't easy, because when you start talking about shadow work and shit can take, it's timeless in spirit. But when you're going through things like through years of things, I still feel like a child on this shit. Like, the things I'm going to talk about, it connects the fact of realizing how much of my mother was a bridge, and then seeing my daughter also reminded me of how now at a point in time, I was saying, like, there was a time I didn't even want to forgive, not even forgive my mother, but learn to have compassion, but still have that compassion and empathy from a distance, because I realized this person isn't healed. So I'm not going to dive into that, because this is about our mothers. This is about the women. This is about your inner child, the little girl, the essence inside of you. Again, this process that, all I'm saying is, it's a process where you have to give yourself grace. It's a process of honoring that and returning home to that which is safe for you. Because even in the fact of not having a father, you still steer down a road where there was no type of structure. And then most of the time, what a lot of women don't know is that you get structures from dynamics outside of you. This is about returning home to you to reinvent that internal world, as I'm going to say. So, I just said what I just said, like, similarly to me saying, like, I had to experience a mother wound as a man before diving deep into the knowledge and applying the wisdom to share and plant seeds without taking it personal, knowing that every person has their own, how did I even put one? Own lived experience, and no one individual is the same. So with this, whatever you see from it, know that not even if another woman went through some type of abuse, sexually, mentally, and so forth, that could have been at different ages. So that experience for her could bring up something different to where she is on her journey. So again, her lived experience is different, but that collective aspect is the pain or the experience, the energy around that sexual abuse, that experience. So it's about acknowledging that, processing that, and being able to navigate it the best way. How? So again, I'm not coming on here to say that I'm just this what do you call those people, like therapists or something like that. It's not even just that anymore, because I don't proclaim to be professional or none of that stuff, because the divine source looks at it as there's things that can reach and connect to people beyond the surface because of the intention, and also because of the experience, also because of the approach, also because of the purity or the intention behind the message. And that's where we're at when it comes to a vibration and frequency, because of, again, what has been stored has kept people in such a surface, intangible thing, But returning home with the rise of the divine feminine, what it's you have to rise from the divine the wounded masculinity displayed from that wounded femininity that you have kept in, and then now that allows you to rise in what is perceived as a divine feminine state, that which you don't look externally for validation, acceptance, the transitioning from and returning to that which, honoring your intuition, honoring, more so like embodying that emotional state, recognizing what has kept you in such a stagnation or kept you from really getting to know who you are and so forth. So, let's see. Okay, lived experience. No one individual is the same. Therefore, the process will be different and uniquely yours to overcome and embrace the knowledge that comes with knowing about who you are, applying it also to your kids, your own also, your own, knowing who you are, which applying, am I supposed to say applying? Basically applying it also to your kids, so they can see. Applying it to the kids, yeah. Meaning like, even when you're out somewhere, people can see, no matter where you are, they're watching. And that's so important because I've noticed this even when, and it's not about being perfect. It's integrity. It's being honest with yourself first. And I've noticed this again, even when you're walking into certain things, there's an expectancy there to be perfect. No, it's not. It's about just being you. It's just like a child learning. And also knowing that the kids are watching someone else's kids, and so forth. So yeah, applying it also to the kids by leading who you are also. Yeah, I just reworded that. Your own kids by walking in your truth and not being ashamed or holding on to what no longer serves you. Perfect. Okay, so now that we're here, all right, let me save that. So we're in our first episode. I had to write down a lot of notes because I put it in my phone and I had to write it down so I could really, because I'm telling you, I have a lot of episodes that I want to discuss. This one I kind of already talked about or highlighted. One of the biggest things I realized when it comes to my lived experiences with a lot of women, and one huge topic that majority, if not like a high percentage of them experience, which is sexual abuse. Next will probably be violence or, verbal or physical abuse. Then you have financial abuse, but I'm gonna stay on the topic of sexual abuse because this is such a topic that is not just a physical thing, it's also an intangible or spiritual thing. And we're moving or already in the age of the collapsing of these false narratives and false foundations, especially how we're basically, or what, the culture or whatever the fuck you want to call it, like trying to, I don't even want to say enlighten, but influence our women not to protect themselves in such a vital and important way. And it ain't just physical, because I keep reminding a lot of people that a lot of things that you see play out is very much spiritual. It's very much principalities and the powers that used to be that were at play. And a lot of it, when you think about the influence of music, or when you think about a circus, the ringmaster. When you think about the Wizard of Oz, the people behind the scenes that were pulling the strings, the puppeteering, the characters that you have in front of you, you know, all of that was orchestrated for, you know, purposely, intentionally done in such a fucking malicious and manipulative way. Now that we're here, it's now about recovering and also recalibrating, restoring that which we're seeing that we're lost. So the importance of this conversation of like that you never had with your father is, it's like I'm stepping in not just as a man but as a father, speaking about the uncomfortable things that were never discussed between you and your father. And you could piece this and break it down whatever way, but even such things that a lot of women never talked about with men, with their father, of how to protect that which is sacred, their womb space, know the importance about it spiritually. Even the fact of the conversations that a lot of you never had even after such a traumatic experience, and not realizing that the body keeps a score. And then now you have been subjected or succumbed by unforeseen forces, being consumed by the external influences, and sometimes unconsciously leading your daughters right into the same narrative and paths. And for some of you, you probably never even know how to correct your own path or know what to do. So you typically don't know how to approach the daughter. And sometimes, again, due to that father wound, there is a resentment there, and you not being protected. You want to protect your child. I know a lot of mothers, that's their greatest fear, is for that to happen. What I can honestly say about what it's not like you're doing more than enough. You're more than enough. You are enough as a mother, whether you're a single mother in a family dynamic, you know, or in a family dynamic, wherever you are. This is a message to all women. It's about the fact of whether you're in a marriage or not, you still could be dealing with the fact of the conversations your father never had. Because what typically can happen, I'm gonna give you different scenarios, and this is just from experience of knowing women who went through this, but I realized like they never had the conversation with their father about how much they were hurt, how much it plagued them to live on with that memory embedded in their mind. And nobody ever telling them that it was not okay for them to experience that. I've had relatives, people close to me who've experienced these things, and they still don't have a father present. Or even the fact of how they cling to men through this fear of abandonment. And this abandonment issue, I'm picking up on this for some people, like this, that abandonment issue can also highlight the fact of the abandonment around sex because of the sexual deed or the abuse of things. So a lot of why you feel you should keep that relationship, or a lot of your behavior patterns around it, is to use sex as something that fuels or to keep said men attached to you. And what can happen with this is you hear a lot about the Jezebel spirit, or you hear a lot about some of y'all are so powerful spiritually that sometimes you're not aware that for some of you, because I'm going to speak to the women that are in tune, the women, again, all women are spiritual. All women are powerful in their own birthright. But for some of you, you hold energy, or you hold within you something that in not ever having those conversations, you have overextended yourself and open yourself up, almost like not just when you open your womb space up, you open up almost like an archive. You open up a world that, again, you open up your internal world. You open up a space that, I'm going to be honest with you, a lot of men were never worthy of. And in your inability to know your worth, I had to tell my partner this. I mean, it's almost like you experience a spiritual grape. And that's simply because it's someone's taking from you something. Even the fact of you, that's how powerful it is. You're not knowing your worth. They take from you every time, energetically sucking you or pulling something from you. And, you know, a lot of women can know about this, that can relate to where when you don't have boundaries, because again, someone came in, whether you were a child or adult or whatever, that experienced teenager, and they not only overstepped your boundary, but depending on what you dealt with ancestrally and spiritually, this is something that could, again, plagued or has been in your lineage for so long to where that spirit or whatever it was, you were targeted, you were sought after. Why do you think for a lot of you generationally, this sexual abuse has happened for so long? And that's why this battle that you're fighting, that you don't want your daughter to experience, and your awareness of that, meaning that it's your responsibility. Because some of you, even why some of you, and I'm just using, I don't like using the term single mother, but for some of you, why you are single mothers has a lot to do with you still are very powerful spiritually. You still have this ability, even in your frustration and anger, even in that father wound that still peaks that you know nothing about, because a lot of stuff was covered up with said religion, with a father who could have been a preacher, with a father who could have been hardworking or going out, or just the fact of didn't prioritize his well-being, or was with a woman. Because again, I tell y'all, a father will also, that the way that masculine, that wounded masculinity is displayed has a lot that reflects the wounded femininity that was in a lot of your mothers when your father met your mother. So a lot of things you still inherit the patterns, or even things mentally, emotionally, and spiritually from mother and father. But that father wound, that father not being there, was very significant. I saw something earlier when it was saying how it was an image of a father and a daughter, a little girl, and he was kissing her forehead. But there was a text inside. It says a father and daughter. I know this is going to hit y'all. A father and daughter. It says a father and daughter. Oh yeah, a father and daughter's love is forever. And that's very much true. Now, for a lot of you, you have been in this almost not even just psychosis, because a lot of you are coming out of so much of religion to be met with the importance of reconnecting to spirituality. Religion is spiritual, but that spirituality predates a lot of these things. It's how a lot of the control and the manipulation around how certain structures and corporations, how devalued, dehumanized women, the daughters, and so forth. How a lot of things were male-centered. And that's what I've spoke about in another video about, even around how dangerous a male-centered woman can be, because that's almost a disconnect from the importance of what women and how women are important to them. And that could stem from that father wound, again, where you had a mother who also had a father wound who never acknowledged it. Because again, some of them could try to escape through external validation, external beliefs, things about trying to save a relationship with that man. That screams father wound. Running to a religious figure, praying to something without acknowledging the emotion, the abandonment, the self-neglect within self first. Because if mama saw that, then she will also know how it is to orchestrate and act out that which is in wounded masculinity. But she has unconsciously shown you and taught you through her actions as well how to embody a father wound. It's not just a father absence, because a part of his absence creates the father wound more, even into more depth for for your mothers. So you can have people who come together in what we call unequally yoked or whatever, and that unequally yoked can be a lot of the fact of your mother meeting your father. For a lot of you, father wounds can still be in what y'all call a two-parent home, a two-guardian home. Some of you had just patriarchal figures that was there, but a lot of them, through sexual abuse, touched you unwantedly, did things that you later found out that was not okay. This opened a door and exposed you to things spiritually. It opened you up. You didn't have a childhood. Some of y'all didn't have a childhood. You grew and were responsible early. You had to be. Because that's what a father would also would initiate. You being the caretaker for your sisters and brothers, or you being overly mothering, overly nurturing. That is a reflection of wounded masculinity. That also in a father wound, you over nurturing a man. You overly extending in whatever way, whether financially, mentally, emotionally, and so forth. It all reflects. That's what you see play out physically. The tangible reflects the intangible. So again, we're talking about foundations of women who have dealt with not the internal wound of sexual abuse. And the reason why sexual abuse is so important is because, let me go ahead and pull this up. And I'm going to speak from the going to the chakra that speaks about the sacral chakra. So for a lot of you, you're gonna learn, you're gonna learn more about why it is like a lot of these patterns really reflect why certain relationships you were in. So so when you think about sexual trauma, one that comes up, the trauma stored in the sacral chakra. This is trauma related to your emotions, your sexuality, and pleasure and creativity. So look that up. So when you think about how much it has affected you when you're hypersexual and you're not really knowing how to use your creative energy, from experience from a man, I had to learn that my mother went through that. I realized she had a father wound. That's how I'm able to connect a lot of this. And in creating my daughter, I realized in my woundedness, she was brought here through that. I even said it to her mother. I'm not ashamed or feel guilt around it because I cannot outrun those lessons. I bring more awareness to this now because I'm realizing in how I've tried to connect with women, I realized I was connecting from a wounded space. Because I not only was trying to connect from me not getting to know me more, but when you see a lot of connections in relationships, a lot of the energies, a lot of the things where I'm telling you, it's that real. A lot of those people that y'all call celebrities, a lot of the old world narratives, when it's centered around preying on the woundings of our inner child, you cannot overlook the fact of the importance of how this affects your root chakra, your sacral chakra, your solar plexus. Because a lot of you have had your heart space open. And I advise y'all to research what these things mean. Again, if you're called to, you have always been open to love. But there are parts of you that, in how a lot of these chakras are aligned, has kept you from aligning that which will stabilize you. So a lot of you that are, if you want to subscribe to being a single mother or whatever, this connects you to the fact of your solar plexus and healing the traumatic things that have happened with you from emotional abuse, abandonment, neglect, sexual traumas, because this disrupts like how your outlook on life, how you view sex, how even through your lens of viewing sex, because men are ruled by Mars, and one of their things that they're ruled by is sex, because naturally we push and y'all pull. So naturally we gravitate towards naturally what you are putting on the table, what you are offering, the fruit and so forth. So when you exchange, and then if you're not conscious aware of what you're exchanging with or what you're offering, and it's not your fault, it's the fact of, it's the foundations, and that even goes to the root chakra. The root chakra is centered around survival, stability. So again, you are a tree. And then when you create a life, that creates an extension or a branch of another fruit, a tree of life. So when you're thinking about the sacral chakra being in your lower abdomen, this rules again how you physically manifest stuff. If you're having lower back pains, it talks about reproductive issues. I don't realize a lot of the shit that the old world narrative and how we're coming into restoring a lot of things with this is going to call for a lot of you. I don't care if you have 30 kids. It's important for you now to be initiated in your healing journey, to go away from not just the old version of you, but the men. The men. I was getting insight on this shit, and it was telling me like, bro, do you know how much I have to watch my back? I'm not afraid, but do you know how much this literally collapses everything around music, businesses, everything centered around attacking especially our mothers, our daughters, and so forth? Because how will these infrastructures and corporations or anything that rule the old world narrative stay grounded? It literally was siphoning or using, making sure you stayed in such a traumatic state, just so you can almost, like I told you, one of my previous videos, it kind of connects. You can watch it it's uploaded to my new channel, talks about how it's uploaded now, talks about, again, we're starting to recognize individually and collectively, we have been in an abusive relationship, not only with ourselves, but trauma bonding and in an abusive relationship with basically the powers that used to be, or even when you think about every foundation, when you look at the music and so forth, everything centered around it. A lot of y'all are driven towards a lot of these artists, and you don't even know energetically has a lot to do with pulling and ciphering off of your trauma. It's easy to glamour or almost like say seductive things because some of y'all been introduced to sex or exposed to shit so young that you actually think it's natural. You don't even see protection or sacredness in it. You know how a lot of us grew up and there was so much emphasis on for a lot of you, and a lot of you didn't even have the opportunity to actually offer or exchange in such a healthy way. And with that, that's been traumatic. That's something that was sacred that was taken from you. And you listen to a lot of these artists, that's all they talk about. So what you think is fucking attached to them? What do you think? I'm telling you, y'all be surprised. It's going to come out. It's already happening. Y'all are just not my only, I ain't even gonna say clients or even just, people out in the world. There are people, I tell y'all, especially y'all, if they want to subscribe to the term celebrity or people of certain status, this shit happens in generations. And there are people, whether they want to call themselves celebrities, that are fighting with Not, it don't have to be similarly. Okay, when you think on the spiritual level and vices and principality, a lot of them are being subjected or consumed by the same thing. They're just fighting and navigating through it differently, through substance abuse, through overextending, through sex and so forth. So a lot of those women that y'all just look towards and you see how they're doing what they're doing, yo, I guarantee you, depending on where they were and what they dealt with, they've been at the hands of sexual and emotional abuse. Key types of traumas and energetic blocks. So a lot of these things has a lot to do with sexual and emotional trauma. Abuse, shame regarding sexuality, and deep-seated guilt are heavily stored here. That's in the sacral chakra. Relationship trauma, issues arising from betrayal, abandonment, neglect, or lack of trust in relationships. A lot of that father wound, and this is how I learned through the mother wound too. When you don't know, a lack of trust with other people reflects self. That may sound wild. Oh, I don't trust niggas. You know, we hear this. I don't trust nobody. Da, da, da. You have people, whether in marriages or not, business and so forth, simply because of one memory, one traumatic experience that they cycle through every day, or they lay down at night, have never told, due to their inability to even trust men, because some relations that they're in, they have built it off, not off integrity or trust. Because a lot of you have built relationships actually expressing to someone, and some of you have, talking about your traumas that you experienced. And then you got to know some of these men are dealing with shit themselves. They're so inequipped or spiritually inequipped, not even in tune with themselves. So whatever's feeding off them wants to feed off your inability to have boundaries. So guess what ends up happening? You have a trauma bond now in relationships. I've seen this. I've experienced this with women in a sense of like, they don't even, how could I say this? Like, in their inability to have boundaries, because I actually went through this with someone and I didn't even know at the time, like how much it affected me until I start processing this. But another form of sexual abuse is the fact of, and I don't mean like someone forcefully doing this. I mean this in a way of like, in one's inability to enforce boundaries. You have a lot of people due to sexual traumas who don't know how to set boundaries, who willingly or inadvertently want to just, because they feel that that's the only way to sustain a relationship. It's just like a trauma bond. They have sex anyway. And a lot of people are unaware that that is a form of sexual abuse to yourself and to the other person. Because this is why for some, I'm not saying all, a lot of stories come out where being that, and this is not everyone because I want to say this clearly, being that, and I'm telling you from experience what happened to me where I was falsely accused of something. And there's no record, no proof, even because, there is proof when someone is forced upon. They do studies, they take the women and or men in there. But this is something that, again, that has, due to, how could I say, like the root of some women, like wanting to blackmail or just get over on men in some type of way. Sex is one of the most profound things. And in that, they still are losing out of the fact of not realizing how much it affects them. And so this is why you have some false accusations that will come up. And there is someone I know that actually they felt that, not even that they felt, but it was, how could I express this? Like their way of trying to say that the person, because it's difficult to even, it's such a touchy subject to where, it's so easily to see a woman as a victim in that situation and never the man, because it's been so verbalized or so common to happen amongst women that we don't realize that it happens amongst men. So my way of saying this is that I was a person who, in being falsely accused of something as such, that the truth ended up coming out of the person realizing that, for one, it wasn't true, but it was something that they was dealing with in their inability not to set boundaries. So that's what I'm saying is a form of how sexual abuse is not just when one who is forced upon, but one who is in a dynamic to where they're with someone who doesn't know how to set boundaries. So they create this narrative or they cycle something within their mind, or, they're in this confused or fond state to where they believe, it's almost like a psychosis, if you want to say that this is true. And this is what happens, I feel like, with a lot of people who don't really know the root or psychological aspect of what's really going on or what has happened to them. So they go off. And I can see that even in the relation of like seeing people who prostitute or sell their body for whatever else. And it's different in relationship experience. When you have people who are being sexually and emotionally abused, it's almost like they give their body, dissociate so much to where it's a shameful feeling, to where it's like they convince themselves that this is okay, this is all right. I hope y'all can break that down what I'm saying, because it's just like someone, I'm not comparing these things, but it shows the deep psychological warfare, and even how we've been given these narratives of believing this is how it's supposed to be and everything was normal. So now the world wants to believe, that's like telling somebody, how some of y'all have been in sexual traumatic experiences where you try to tell a parent or tell a father or someone, and their response, because I knew someone that happened to this, their response, the father didn't know how to react, but just to go get the child treatment. But after that, you're talking about the shame, that the trauma that's stored in the child's body, or, teenager or woman, and they have to live with that. That's for some people that don't go to therapy, or for some people who don't know what it is to let go of that energetic block. Other signs that it create emotional instability. So the feeling of what it is to feel emotionally safe again. Sexual dysfunction, like low lobotomy. I believe that libido. Fear of intimacy. That's one of the biggest things and then emotional unavailability. So I feel like even with sexual dysfunction, there's like a spectrum almost, because you have people that have went off so long with doing these things that they've not only created families around it, but they've stayed in dynamics. You got grandmothers and mothers who have stayed in situations when they know that they were abused. They stayed in it and created more children. And the psychological thing around that is I don't even have the words for the dysfunctionality around it, because so much of our mothers and grandmothers have been in that. And then not only that, they stay, and some of it is not even just sexual, it becomes financial, it becomes emotional. But a part of that sexual abuse is highlighting that there's emotional, because you have a spiritual, physical, emotional body. So a lot of what happens to you doesn't just happen to you physically, and a lot of people are unaware of that. There's something that happens within you emotionally. You numb yourself. The fear of intimacy, and it can be the fear of someone abandoning you with sex. So you use sex as a tool to keep that man or person or individual around. And when you're not given a foundation of knowing the importance of how it is to be with self, over time, you can lose your passion and just become numb and feel like you just have to do it because the world has told you to, or because the fact of you didn't know. In a lot of these situations, put women also in more, dangerous situations, with, human, the car traffic, you know what I'm saying, trafficking, things as such, and so many different things around that. The creativity, one of the things it talks about is the creativity stagnation, the lack of passion. Imagine just being so focused on sex that you don't focus on your purpose or create from that life. How it's like you become uninspired. Um, it also mentioned like difficulty expressing yourself because that little girl never left you. So a part of you is still in that fond state or in that place of, is it Stockholm syndrome? It's one of those ones where even through sexual traumas, you develop, and I would advise people to, encourage people to research that, like how you develop these positive emotions or almost like a loyalty to the person. So that's one of the biggest things around sexual trauma too, that it doesn't matter how many years you go off into a relationship. Some of you, I've seen this happen with someone that held on to something very significant to their abuser, whether something tangible. And even in that holding something tangible, that let me know that they were still holding on to the intangible, to the memory itself, and that being stored within their body. So I start to realize in that connection, it was very it was very hypersexual. It was a challenging spiritual warfare that I realized, like, in my inability to learn more about myself now that I am a father, because I became a father like not long after that situation, but not with the same person. So I realized, like, through that shift, and this is what happened with a lot of men, that jumping from woman to woman and not having that room to actually face themselves and see what's going on with them, that is again a pattern, a cycle, almost a spiritual attachment, or even the lustful spirit, to where they connect with women that could be deemed as Jezebels, or even have this lustful spirit as well. And again, this transfer of things as such, when it's not addressed or aware, has a lot to do with a lot of that father wound that I know now of, that I'm connecting and bridging because of the mother wound that I had. I realized I was connected with women who also had whether a mother wound and a father wound. And it was showing me, like, a lot of people are unaware, like, in that process of that, this is where a lot of life, a lot of kids, a lot of souls or whatever have been incarnated in that same energy and in that same way. So when we don't face it or acknowledge it and so forth, and there is no topics around this, not topics or discussions around these things. And it's so interesting because I've had these discussions with my partner, with the mother of my children, and you start to recognize, like, whoa, this is something, like, we didn't have foundations where people told us about anything. So I recognize now that in my learning my mother wound and what I've dealt with, I'm able to see the father wound that she had. A man who, when you start to look at the dynamics, who have created multiple, if you want to call them broken homes, or created multiple children by different women, and or, again, you start to look at the root of things, and the cycles are similar because you start to see similar patterns in the daughters, or you start to see similar patterns in the sons of what that man is reflecting. So I'm like, oh, I can see that father wound. And it's so interesting talking about the sexual traumas, because my mother never acknowledged, but I know she has went through it. She will never say it, because when you look at the fact of how people have subjected themselves to drugs or substance abuse, along their lines, you have given up a part of yourself, self-sacrifice. You have no boundaries to where you'll do things for drugs. And I've heard through the grapevine from people telling me, I didn't want to, but that's a part of, again, a form of you're not honoring that which is stable in your life, or using that energy to your safety, especially when you're dealing with sexual trauma. Like it talks about how like you lost a sense of safety and control, especially after that. So that's why you see people go into these different avenues and ways of life, and they tell themselves that they're safe, but the experiences made the person feel so unsafe to where their own bodies, or they're unable to set boundaries. They don't know how. And especially goes to the root of like seeing like it made sense to where I don't know how true this is, but someone in my immediate family the family that I came through, like told me how my grandfather, there was a possibility of him touching on one of his, I don't know if it was like my mother or my aunt or something. Like I said, I don't know how much that to be true. I never asked him because he's no longer here in the physical. But I recognize again this topic around the conversations you never had with your father. I talk about my experiences because a lot of men, for one, have been sexually abused as well and never talk about it. A lot of fathers or men that are fathers never talk about it. So that's a very unsafe and sensitive topic, because dealing with a little girl is much more different than approaching a little boy, especially when you're coming from cultures where a lot of these men, when they talk about sexual abuse, they encourage the boy to step out and be with little girls. But when it's a topic of with a little girl, there's almost nothing at all. There's nothing about, that already is a red flag to encourage the little boy. So in their inability or their silence or not speaking up, for some of y'all, the father not saying anything, then that's also a red flag of a form of not protecting you, not just physically, but spiritually. Because as he speaks and plants seeds, that's important for you to know, like, this is what type of man, make sure he's in tune, emotionally safe. Think about things like that. Learn about him before you lay down with him. Learn about his experiences how's his experience with his mother, and this is almost like a warning or protection before you actually engage, before you open your world up to him, because that is a world from the spirit to the physical. Because when you open up your world and you engage with this person, whatever they're holding on to, whatever they is unresolved and so forth, typically this is how some of those incidents happen. Because when you think about people who have the mindset to actually engage and do something to an underage individual, a little girl and so forth, there's something fucking fucked up and psychological or spiritual or something going on within this individual that is much more deeper, that's on the surface. Much more deeper. And then not to mention how people have protected it. Because some of y'all, there are people that have protected these individuals just for the sake of an image, a dollar, the so-called false legacy that they created. They'll protect that image before they protect, and then especially if you have children, before they do anything, they'll protect that image before they even care to address and bring accountability to what happened to you as a child. So this also is very important leading forward. If you have children, these are the very people who are unable to face the shadow within themselves and address what's going on that you need to have around your children. That's real. I know I got to make a part 2 to this because it's so vital to even how we ignore these signs. There's people right now, I wouldn't ever have my children around, ever, because I cannot unsee what I've saw. I've seen the conversations, I know things that have went on and so forth. I've had cousins tell me things about the men. And so when you think, and these are men who are fathers, things that were never addressed. So you're talking about a thing that's been lingering. And it's a moment now in addressing these things that that has happened to you, that you forgive yourself for what you didn't know. And a part of that forgiveness is forgiving that individual, because it's wild to say, but for some of y'all situations, some people didn't know no better. They actually think, like, imagine some people actually thinking like they were given the green light to think that this was okay to harm someone, which is so fucked up. It's so traumatic. And so for a lot of you, you know, that process has a lot to do with wherever you are right now, to find the best healthy outlet. Like I know that a lot of these things are preparing me to have these topics and discussions in a space where I can connect with women more, and so forth. And it's going to expand a lot. I already know, because again, some people don't know even the fact of the current state of what they're in until they see a video, or until something comes across to where they didn't even realize who they were with. And that's related to the fact of, even through that father wound, what you have attached yourself to or become so complacent or comfortable with when it comes to a person who you wanted to ignore, that has sexually abused you. You know, it's this is what we have come to. You start to recognize the wickedness in humanity, and how things are cleansing and being purified, or almost like being addressed. Because moving forward, I see the importance of how the recovery process through these things, where a lot of women are going to be called to restrain from sex, because that's what happens with healing. That's what happens with healing the wound, the emotions that come up around the intense mood swings, the depression, anxiety, the numbness, because of the emotional instability from that very situation. Recognizing why these things have happened, and then getting to the root of it, and then creating outlets and platforms, or whatever it is, to bridge and to protect that which, so that your children, or little girls and daughters, are able to see you in that light, recognizing the light within yourself, that darkness, but being able to stand firm and be confident, and to be able to have the courage to walk away. Because there are going to be men and women that support you in this, because a lot of this is building. Because when you look at the dysfunctionality around sexual abuse and so forth, people have built communities, corporations, and business around that, to prey on that, to keep it. Now it's our position now to build away from that shit and watch it collapse. Because then you're walking away from your family dynamics. I had to see this as a father. I had to recognize, like, wow, my mother, my grandmother, them are certain people. Even through the people who had actually went through sexual abuse, they will literally keep things afloat. And I'm like, you know what? Wow. I'm not that as a father. So I'm able to have these conversations with people who this has happened to, who are ready to go beyond this, who are ready to heal and acknowledge these things, so that this can be preventable, so you can create a bridge in a world, in a community, to where your daughters, daughters, your mother, you know, whomever you are, you as a mother and grandmother, don't have to experience things as such ever again. That's important. And who better that it comes from a man that can be honest about the fact of what has happened and what no longer happened. Whether these things, you have been in a position where these things have happened to you. And then even on the other side, where I talked about how even some women don't even know that they feel men should be punished through the fact of them holding, where the woman holding on to something that abused them, and then they feel that they should put a man in an uncompromising position because maybe he doesn't want to engage anymore, or he doesn't, he feel he does, things don't want to happen anymore. Because again, those incidents where someone would say, oh, this happened to me, just a form of keeping that person attached. And some people don't realize a lot of this shit is through your own abandonments, own selfish attachments, unhealthy connections, unhealthy attachments, I should say. So, and or your own inability to set boundaries that you never set or that were never taught from a father. Your father never taught you what it is to set boundaries around men like that. And for some of them, they overstep. An uncle, a brother for some of y'all, because I've heard it. I've heard it. And it's wild because I know people right now who still, oh my gosh, bro. I just know someone right now who has told me about what has happened to them, people closest to them, to their sister, to their sisters, and even the men that were their brothers. And somehow, some way, they still are enmeshed in some way. And it's like, it's not that they don't want to get out. It's not that they don't have a way out. The so-called father figure is even worse off, or even just as emotionally, mentally, verbally abusive. And it's like, I realize this is why the fuck I take so much courage in what I do, because I'm the cycle breaker from that shit. And you too are. You are. You don't, once you realize that shit click, that you are the God in light. And that's why some of them, even through their scarcity and fear of speaking up, are watching you, are watching people like us. Men like us who know that some of you don't even have due to the fact of being in something that when you look at sexual abuse, some of you, it's scarcity because it's scared because you're so familiar and your mind has been playing these things out for so long that you're trying to find to try to find the best way out, the situation, the circumstances, whether you have children or not. You are waiting that day where you can build on something, where you can be away from these people. And it's wild because of how a lot of shit was created is for these very things that happen. Because a lot of y'all sexual abuse came through a lot of things, especially happened to single mothers. And it was fucking purposely orchestrated. Why do I say this? Because when you look at the fact of how a lot of men can prey on single mothers, because they know that you're vulnerable or wounded, or not even just that, it's like the spirit knows that you're not stable, so you're looking for anything to make you feel whole, accepted. And in that experience, I'm not saying that you're wrong or right. You had the experience to see again where you are now, where this video finds you, to realize that your worth. The reason why, when you talk about the sacral chakra and all of those things, those lower chakras reflect your self-value, your self-worth. You have to ask yourself, why has my value been within sex? Am I creating a life around this? And I had to learn this, speaking from the fact of like a wounded man, to come to this and share this, because I lived a life that was centered around being hypersexual. I went through the mood swings, the depression, the numbness, to have sex just to feel, and I was still numb. To avoid accountability, to avoid feeling as a man, as a father. I went through those things to realize, like, hold on. There's something bigger than that. There's a bigger picture. So, and then, you ask yourself, what type of identity have you created from the conversations you never had with your father? And I know it's vital for a lot of you because there's so many untold stories. Some of you, my condolences to even the men that are not there, that have left this world, and the conversation you never got to have. They never probably got to see you or your grandchildren and so forth. You never got to tell them what happened to you when you were a child, when you were adult, teenager, and so forth. I'm wishing you much clarity, that you find yourself and be able to get through those experiences, and make this video and the videos that come allow you to come back home to yourself and realize, like, even through that experience, you still can find emotional safety again. You still can find, you still can rise out of that pain, that experiences, and so forth. So, yeah. I didn't even know that was gonna come up, talking about like people I know, like family wise. Like it really highlights how deep this is for a lot of people that are experiencing that shit. And it shows you too what we're willing to invest in. Because when you look at these systems, imagine investing into communities that's recovering from that. That's gonna happen, like recovering from that. Women that actually want to go into places, and not just it being about money. No, it really being about building things and creating things. And that's why a lot of us take so much courage and confidence in what we do. It's more than just the money. Because when you think about talking about the chakras and things that imbalance, a lot of even sexual, when you think about sexual abuse, a lot of it is connected to your emotional stability. Your emotions is connected to the money. Like a lot of these things, your well-being connects to everything and how you manifest or create the world that you live in. Because I know you desire better experiences. For some people, they don't know how. They don't know where to look. But in these shifts, this is what's so vital about it, what's happening now. So the answers are here. Do I have them all? No, because a lot of them, the things that I share is for you to find the answers within yourself. I don't know your experiences. I don't know everything that happened. I'm just here to be a messenger and to remind you that it's okay to come home to yourself. It's okay to come home to the little girl. Because in me coming home to that little boy, I'm able to see the importance of, in being a father and seeing that mother wound, I'm able to recognize that father wound within other people and realize, like, a lot of it has to do with a lot of things that have happened traumatically with people, whether it be through sexual abuse and so forth. A part of them wants to get back and be, how do I say this, like get back to that little girl or little boy before that even happened, or even after that happened. Because a lot of these lived experiences now are literally through that which that's unresolved or has been repressed, through people's careers, through what they do, through sexual work, a lot of things. Like I said, I'm not here to judge, but it's just the fact of how people have created their world from that. And that has a lot to do with where you put your energy. And the sacral chakra is so important because it's one of the important ways of how we create our imagination, how we create life, what we build on, and so forth. A part of your imagination, a part of you feeling safe in your own internal world, and then you wanting to feel safe with that person. See, a part of that, what you didn't feel safe in when it happened, and that connection to that father wound and that resentment around it, is that you could have been in marriages for 50, 60 years, you can be in a relationship and so forth, and still never have felt safe. And that's very vital to the recovery of our mothers. Because a lot of that even connects to the root chakra of how you have survived most of your life. And then even after that, how it will have a ripple effect on how your children will survive or live out this world, where they survive or thrive. So yeah, I feel like that's all I want to cover. A lot of you in this, I encourage you to do a lot of emotional letting go, like cry, so you can reconnect to yourself. And then in that, it's okay to create healthy boundaries now. around the fact of you saying no to a partner. Because in this shit, when it happens, I'm telling you, it'll reveal whatever they're going on internally, whatever stabilized that. Because I've learned, even through experiences, like when you remove sex and even money or certain things out of the equation of a lot of things that like probably created it, and you know better than anybody how you met that person, because it's going to bring you back or reflect on that. Once you look at the foundation, then you have to ask yourself, it's okay to have been the fool and be ignorant, but it's also okay to set boundaries and not tolerate this shit anymore. Because in that, you heal something within yourself, your lineage, the matriarchal, and even the father. Because a lot of things that people want to ignore, it'll bring up something within them. Some things that they didn't want to see, that they didn't want to acknowledge. And it's going to be uncomfortable because a lot of you that have the opportunity to address that, it's so much emotions around it because things are completely different when it comes to a man or a woman. We respond differently. Because there's so much, y'all reflect like nature. We're like an aspect of life. You want to call it the sun, or we just receive and learn information differently than y'all do. So a lot of you, it can take it can be challenging, but it's going to be rewarding because there's a responsibility that comes with healing. There's a responsibility, and you know what? Even with sexual traumas, it's like, or just being going through sexual abuse. You know, a lot of things we convince ourselves. You know, for some of you that were daughters, and then now into womanhood or wherever you are, you know, the mind or through the fact of like what belief systems we've learned, you know, you'll think it's rewarding. Think about how many girls talk about like, and this is how you know a lot of them have went through sexual trauma, bro. When you look at the collective, they'll tell themselves, oh, I got so many bodies, or I went and did this, I went and did this. And I'm like, bro, that screams sexual trauma or abuse to even tell a man, to even tell someone. Because if I knew what I knew then, you know, there was someone I knew about who went through this, and they start to make sense to where, again, a lot of their foundations had nothing to do with being a healthy father being there. So a lot of their ways of approaching life really reflected why they went down the path that they did and so forth, only to come back home to themselves. But it really just showed me like there was something that was not implemented or taught to them how to protect, how to have boundaries around such a sacred place, you know. And for some of them, it happened so early. You know, I knew someone that it happened really early with her. And, you know, it just, you know, she approached it differently when she told me like she had a lot of men or she'd been with a lot of men. I didn't question things then because at the time, I don't know where I was, but I knew it was very significant to where that I kept meeting people with this similar energy. I kept meeting people prior to this, you know, about a child and, you know, assuming that because with the thing that's so dangerous, but at the same time can be beautiful, is the fact that a lot of men, or, you know, the conversations that, again, how it can look different from a man to a woman, is that it's so dangerous how a father not telling their daughters, like, you can get disease, you know, something can happen to you, the importance of like, you know, how safe the man is, his background, his foundations, his belief system. And then the most important thing, you can create life from that shit. And when you think about a lot of men that are holding the mother wound, for a lot of you that have dealt with sexual traumas, these are some of your fathers that were little boys at one time. So a lot of these fathers were never taught the importance of being ready for you. And so a lot of why they were silenced, why they never said nothing, is because no one ever told them that that was important, that that was valuable. And so, you know, these are things that you don't know, but again, a conversation from a father that you never had, I'm letting you guys know, well, letting you women know, wherever you are, is that a lot of these men have no knowledge of the importance of what sex is, the foundations of how it can create life. So a lot of them have engaged and been with women who most likely have already had sexual traumas, and that's all it was. So you're talking about, again, and when you look at just sexual abuse and trauma, and then how it's introduced through the arts of music and so many things that were hidden, then you'll see how this has affected the collective. A lot of women who are scared, and a lot of men who are so numb to even talking about it. These are a lot of your fathers, because they've been taught to be numb about it, or most of the time they have this, they're emotionally unstable, or have these sexual dysfunctions and this creative stagnation. So all they know to do is to have sex, and that's why you see, I'm about to get into a whole other subject. This is the first episode, so I appreciate you all to the podcast, the conversations you never had with your father. Because I'm about to get into a whole other thing, but I want to just leave it here. But just know that you are safe, and it's okay to be safe again. And it's okay to honor that which has happened to you and no longer ignore it. I experienced sexual abuse, and through that experience of not ignoring it anymore, I'm here to be a bridge as a father, as a man, and even, the little boy who has learned within me, the inner child has learned to be safe again. And that has allowed me to recognize the sexual abuse that other people ignore, but I'm able to recognize the sexual traumas that they have stored, and that's through men and women. So these conversations are very much so a part of that. So I wish you all well on your journey. Take care of yourselves, love on yourself, be honest. Start today. Take a moment, 5 or 10 minutes, whatever it is, to acknowledge what's going on. Purge those emotions, let them go. A therapist I knew was talk therapy is a lot of acknowledging what has happened to you, and know that it doesn't leave you, because the body keeps a score. The importance of the traumas in itself, as she mentioned, is to learn to keep that version of yourself at a distance, so it doesn't consume you. Because a lot of what we have ignored is we unconsciously have kept that version of us through so many different relationships, through our business and partnerships and so forth. And we're here to thrive. We're here to actually experience life abundantly, not through the lens of woundedness. This is the shift that's happening. Y'all take care of yourself. Peace and blessings. Shalom.